Ado Penguin. For tomorrow, prepare today. Download the app now. At link in the description below. Now, before we move ahead with this lesson, it is important for you to have basic knowledge of loops, to better understand this session. Okay, so now we're going to learn how to make the snake body grow and grow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create something called a list, and call it list segments, because the body has segments. When we start the game, there are no segments, and the snake just has a head. So what we want to do is when the player touches the food, we need to add a segment to the snake. So I'm going to go down to the main loop. So if there is a collision.we've already made the food go somewhere else, but what we need to do now is to add a new segment. So, we create a new segment, which is a turtle object. Speed will be 0, and our new segment shape is going to be square. Set the gray color. We use pen up so that new segment does not draw anything. And then finally, we need to append this new segment to our list of segments. So we are going to type in segments.append new segments. So what's going to happen is, hopefully when snake eats food, it should get a new body part. So next step is we need to make sure that the segments are actually touching and connected. So what we are going to do is, we are going to move the last segment to where the last segment is, and so on and so forth. So instead of moving the tail from the front to the back, I'm going to move the back to the front. So, we type in index and range length segments, -1, 0, -1. And, next what we do is, we say x equals segments, index -1.x coordinate, and y equals segments, index -1.y coordinate. Okay, so now we have to set the location of segment. So we type in segment index.go to x, y. Okay, since the first segment is number 0. And we want to move the segment 0 to where the head is. So we type in, if the length of the segment is more than 0, then x is equal to the head.x coordinate, and y is equal to head.y coordinate. And segment 0 go to x, y. So let us run this and see how it works. Great, it's working. So, now what we want to do is, we want to add collision of snake with the body. Okay, what we are going to type in is, we are going to say check for a collision with the border. So there are 4 borders. There's a left border. There's a right border, the top border and a bottom border. So what I do, I will type in, if the head.x coordinate is greater than 280, or head.x coordinate is less than -280, or head.y coordinate is less than -280, or head.y coordinate is more than 280. Okay, so those are the 4 different conditions. So if the head goes off the screen to the right, or goes off the screen to the left, or off the screen to the top and off the screens in the bottom, then what we're going to do is, we're going to time.sleep for 1 second. It will pause the game. Then, we're going to send the head back to 0, position. And we're going to stop the head. So now, what we have to do is, we have to hide the segments. So, what we're going to do is I'm going to type in, for segments in segments. Okay, so what that does is, it goes through the list of segments, that starts at 0 and, through each one, at a time. Then I am going to type in segments.go to 1000. All I'm doing is, I'm moving it off the screen way up here to the top. The reason I'm doing this is, because in the Python turtle module, I could not find a way to actually delete the segments from memory. Okay, so what we have to do now, is to clear the segments list. That will clear the list. Okay. So now we are going to run the code. Great, it's working. Now, it's supposed to end the game when the snake touches its own body. So let us write the code for it. We're going to basically do the same thing we did with the collision for the food. We're going to measure the distance, but here we have to measure the distance between the head and the different body segments. So as you saw earlier, we will do this after we move. So we're going to go through each segment one at a time. We type in for segments in segments. So that will go through from the first segment, then the second segment, then the third segment, and so on. And then we check if the segment's distance to the head is less than 20. So that means they're overlapping. So we're going to do what we did before. Time.sleep. 1. Head go to 0, 0. Head.direction stop. And we are done with this code. Now, we need to hide the segments and clear the segments list. So, we use the same code to hide and clear the segments, which we had used while writing the code for food collision. Okay, so now you've got to make sure that all your code is indented properly. If it's not indented properly, your code won't run correctly. By indentation, we mean aligned correctly. Now after this, what we want to do is, we want to actually prevent the snake from going into its own body. That is taking the reverse direction. For example, if the snake is moving up, it should not go down directly into its own body. It should go in the right or left direction first, and then downwards. There are a couple of different ways to do it. But what we are going to do is add a bit of code up here, where we define functions to go up and down. So we type in if head.direction is not equal to down, which means if head direction is equal to left, right, or up, then snake head can go up. We use the same logic for rest of the directions and complete the code. Let us run the code and see how it is working. It cannot reverse directions. Collapse on touching its own body segment. Great! Now next, we shall set the scoring up and some other features. Now, the turtle module has a very convenient function, called write function, that we can use to put text on the screen. So I'm going to first create a turtle, to use it as a pen. So I'm going to call it pen. So we type in pen is equal to turtle.turtle, pen.speed 0. Animation speed and shape doesn't matter, as we're actually not going to be able to see it, as we are going to use it for score updates. And so the color does matter because that will change the text color, and I'm going to use white color for text. We want to set pen to be pen up, because we're not going to draw any lines, and as we know turtle objects by default draw lines. And here's interesting, we're going to hide the turtle. And then, the pen is going to go to 0, 260, which will align the score texts at the top of the screen. And we want to write our default score and high score that will be shown on the screen. So we type in pen.write, score equals 0, and high score is also equal to 0. When the game starts, that's the score, then align equals center. And font equals to font, courier, size, 24, and text style as normal. Take a notice of parenthesis and comma. It is extremely important for you to be accurate with small things, like parenthesis, comma, indentation, else your code won't run correctly. So let us run the code and see. So we can see, we have got the score equal to 0, and I also have a high score equal to 0. So next what we need to do is, we need to create some variables, so as to store values. So under our delay time, we will type in, score equals to 0, and also high score equals to 0, as when we start the game, the score and high score equals 0. Notice we have used lowercase letters and underscore, and this is the preferred way of writing Python code. So now, what we have to think is, in what situations does the score increase? And the first one is when there is a collision with the food. We want to increase the score. So what I'm going to do is, I'm gonna say, increase the score. So let's say score plus equals 10. What that does is, it adds 10 to the current score. Now in some other languages you might see score equals score plus 10. This will work in Python, but a shortcut is plus equals 10. We also do minus equals 10, multiplied etc. but we want to add 10 to the score. So the score is 10, we add 10, it's now 20. It's 20, we add 10, it's now 30. The next thing we want to do is check the high score. So if the score is greater than the high score, then we set the high score to the new score. Now, when the score updates, we need to clear the previous score and write a new score. So, we type in pen.clear, and then next thing is pen.write. Score brackets and high score brackets. And then I'm going to use the format method, so we type in .format. And then score comma high score in brackets. And then set the properties of text as we did before. We set alignment to center, and remaining other text styles accordingly. Now, when the snake hits the border or touches its own body, we want the score to reset. So we need to find our code where snake collides with the border, and we need to update the score. So there we type in score equals 0, and pen.clear, and pen.write. Score brackets and high score brackets, with format method. Also while writing codes, don't forget to write comments which start with the hashtag, as they are important guidelines for your code. Here the comment is, reset score. And then we paste the same code for snake's collision with its body. We want to increase the speed of the snake when it eats food. So for that, what we can do is, when the player touches the food, we can shorten the delay. So go to the section where we wrote the code for food collision. Check for the indentation. It is very important for the indentation to be right. And we type in delay minus equal to minus 0.005 or lower as per the level of difficulty you want to set. So, now when the snake body gets longer, its speed will increase. Here, the only thing we have to remember is, when snake hits the wall or its own body, we want to reset time delay back to 0.1. So when it hits border or its own body, we shall type the comment reset delay, and the code shall be, the delay is equal to 0.1. Make sure to add this code under body collision as well as wall collision. With this, we are done with our Python coding for the snake game. Let's run the code and play the game. If you liked what you are watching, then go ahead, like the video, hit the subscribe button and bell notification icon.